The new horror movie Weapons was one of the most anticipated movies leading up to its release. Now, coming off the success of Barbarian, in this video we will uncover whether Zach Cregger was able to continue his filmmaking magic with his second film. And I'm gonna go ahead and answer that for everybody. Yes, he absolutely did. What's going on, Spooky Gang? It is your boy Tech. I just saw Weapons this past weekend, and for those of you who told me that the movie would not be what I expect, you were right. You absolutely were right, and that's exactly what I loved about it. It's different than anything somebody could have expected of the film, and that's not a bad thing. But before we do a deep dive into this film and reveal spoilers, subscribe to the channel and show your boy some love, and know that I recommend this movie to all horror fans. This movie is kind of like if The Black Phone, Longlegs, and the It miniseries slash 2017 reboot all had a baby and it was shot like Strange Darling. Yeah, that sounds like a weird combination, right? But it works. So now, jumping into this movie, at 2:17 a.m., 17 children from the same class vanish in the middle of the night, leaving only one child, Alex Lilly, behind. So in the very beginning, we see all these children running away from their houses with no real explanation whatsoever, all running in like this same form as if they're like free, like as if it's recess. They all have their arms out like this while they're running, and it just seems like they're running towards freedom. Like I don't even really know. But then once we get through the intro of seeing the kids all leave their house at 2:17 a.m., then we deal with community scrutiny, and then also scrutiny for the teacher of that class for the 17 students that disappeared. The community and the town is sort of up in arms, and they're like, why did all the kids only leave from her class? What is her involvement? This, that, and the other. And you see that shrinks her into depression and alcohol. And another one of our main characters, who was a father of one of the kids that disappeared, you also see his grieving as well. As the movie progresses, you start to see more unsettling discoveries and more of these freakish nightmares. So Justine Gandy, the teacher, ends up following Alex home, and then she ends up investigating Alex's strange household. She sees that newspaper is covering the windows, and through a little crack in the window, she saw that Alex's parents seemed to be in some weird like trance state. And both her and Archer continue to have these little weird nightmares about the missing children. So as we continue, another person's perspective is an addict named James, and he ends up breaking into Alex's house. He ends up finding the missing children in this weird catatonic state. He then notifies the police, which triggers a pursuit. Then, in the movie, we meet the orchestrator of it all, Gladys. Gladys introduces herself as Alex's aunt, and then she reveals herself as a witch who uses dark magic from this potted tree. And she uses personal items from the people in the town, control them, and then pretty much replenish herself. Then as we dig into the climax, under Gladys's influence, people start to turn violent, and she pretty much can trigger them to do pretty much anything just at the snap of a twig. Alex ends up using Gladys's own hair against her. All of those missing children end up chasing her, and they end up dismembering her completely. Then after that, Alex moves away from his parents, and his parents are institutionalized, and all of those children still traumatized, and some of them are even having a hard time getting out of that trance, but at least all of them are then reunited with their families. So now talking about this movie from an overall technical aspect, I thought that this movie was really enjoyable. Like as we mentioned in the intro, I definitely was not expecting really half of the stuff that happened in this movie, and that's one thing that I want to credit Zach Cregger for, just because he keeps you on your toes. I loved Barbarian, and Barbarian did the exact same thing. You think that it's just this girl going to this Airbnb house and then encounters this weird guy, and then boom, the movie just flips on its face about halfway through, and then you're like, oh snap, wait, this is what the movie is about? This movie kinda is in a similar way in a lot of ways. If you just read the poster tagline, and it says, at 2:17, all the kids from Miss Gandy's class end up running away, blah, 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 whatever it says. Like, you think like, dang, like this could be really like this, probably like murder mystery, kind of like Prisoners type of movie, just with some horror elements. And in some ways it is, and then in other ways it's not, just because then we end up finding out that this whole movie is basically about witchcraft. So like that just was really interesting to me, and then all of the themes related to this movie as well that we'll get into. But yeah, I just thought it was a really enjoyable movie overall. I thought the pacing at certain times dragged a little bit, and partially that kind of comes from the fact that it was shot in non-linear fashion. So as I mentioned, it would be like it's talking about Miss Gandy's perspective first, then it'll talk about Archer's perspective, then it'll talk about James the addict's perspective, then it will talk about Alex the kid's perspective, and such perspective. But like all of those things are happening at the same period of time, but it's just a different person's perspective of what was going on and where they were while certain other events were happening. You still see pretty much the same scenes that you saw earlier, but just from a different person's perspective. So it's like sometimes that part kind of dragged on. It's just like, okay, you could probably chop theirs up some and like get to the point a little bit, but outside of that, it was really good. It was funny, but it wasn't like bad. It wasn't bad comedic timing or anything. It was real good dark comedy. And then talking about some of the themes of the movie, so the whole weapons idea and how Gladys basically weaponizes people. She uses people as weapons. They're pretty much conduits for violence or anything that she wants to create or ensue on another person. Then obviously you deal with the grief and the trauma and the breakdown of all of the community and the paranoia around that as well. How all of them were thinking that, oh, Miss Gandy had something to do with it just because all the students came from her class and there's only one student left, and like, what is she doing to help, what is she doing to help find the kids, and blah, blah, blah. Is she really sincere about the fact that she cares for these kids? All this good stuff. So you have all that extra paranoia and people attacking her. And then if you want to dive even deeper and go even more real world problems, then you have, that symbolism in the movie where the assault rifle was floating above the house. That can be sort of in a way a supernatural metaphor for some of the real horrors in the world, like school shootings and other tragedies, just all that real world fear that people have. And that was definitely some symbolism around that. But back to that non-linear form, that really did deepen the level of suspense regarding the movie, just because like I said, as you're watching each part, you're sort of connecting the dots, and then all culminates into one really good story overall. And then talking about some of the actors in the movie, Julia Gardner as Miss Gandy and Josh Brolin as Archer, they were all very good. The addict James, who was played by Austin Abrams, he was really good too. Like, he is what really added a lot of funny things into the movie, just because you know how addicts do. So just ridiculousness. And the kid Alex Lilly, low key in a lot of ways, he carried especially that last part of the movie, because he showed a lot of levels of maturity and situational awareness, which kind of breaks the mold of a lot of horror kids who are just kind of there. The only thing that they may do is like warn their parent that there's some level of evil, and then they don't really do anything about it, or they end up being this scary demonic kid at the end of the movie, blah blah blah. He was a kid that was just really mature, and he really just kind of acted his ass off. He was really good. Visually, this movie was really appealing. It was very atmospheric. You kind of in a way really feel for a lot of those parents and like the situation that they would be going through with kids being missing, and some really, really creepy imagery. Now, is this movie going to be a movie that is just going to like scare the socks off of you or something like that? No, it's not one of those. As I mentioned, there are some scary scenes here and there, or like really scary, creepy visuals or shots. But in terms of like the whole movie being, tension filled and dread and stuff like that, no, not really. It's just a really good, suspenseful, and then kind of fun movie in a way, especially at the end. I think the best part of the movie overall is absolutely the ending, where the kids all snap out of their trance and they all chase Gladys across the neighborhood and all this good stuff and tear her apart. Everything about it was just amazing. How the kids are busting through the windows, all that good stuff. I just absolutely loved it. And so with all this love and all this praise that I'm giving it, obviously everybody's probably ready for rating time. And so with that being said, rating time, I'm gonna say from a technical aspect, I would give this movie probably about a 3.5 out of 5. I think that it was pretty solid all around. No real complaints outside of some of those pacing issues. This movie was 2 hours long. It could have been about an hour and 45, and I think the same points would have gotten across and everything would have been fine. But regardless, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I'll say that's about a 3.5 out of 5. And then from how much I enjoyed it, or / how much I liked the movie, yeah, this is probably going to be a 4. So that puts this movie at a total of a 7.5 out of 10, which would be my highest ranking of the year so far. And it's not necessarily that this movie is just head and shoulders above really any other movies that came out, but I think it just did a good job of combining a lot of the elements that we like in our horror movies and some of the tropes and still some of that level of the comedy that we've been getting a lot this year. But it doesn't overdo it where it feels like this is a horror comedy. But yeah, super enjoyable. Nothing like anything that you've seen this year. That's why it is coming in at a 7.5 out of 10 and objectively one of the best horror movies of this year. But that is all I have for y'all, Spooky Gang. Y'all comment down below what you thought of the movie Weapons and what were some of your favorite elements or aspects of the movie. And did you like it more than Barbarian? Barbarian's still gonna be top of the charts for me, one of my favorites. But this movie, very well, like I said, on repeated watch, very well could be climbing up the ranks. Who knows? But yeah, y'all comment that down below. Like the video if you're new, subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 10K subs. Y'all know how we rocking. It's the same old vibes every single week. So it's just gonna keep coming out with those bangers. And yeah, that's all I got. So Spooky Gang, until next time, y'all stay blessed and y'all stay spooky.